For years, the night sky was nothing more than silence. Telescopes scanned endlessly, their purpose simple: to watch for rocks drifting too close to Earth. The work was steady, routine, almost boring. But then came the night when the silence broke. From deep space, a pulse cut through the static, sharp and deliberate. It wasn't random noise. It wasn't the echo of a distant star. It was organized, repeating, as if someone or something was speaking for the first time. Scientists froze at their screens, realizing they were staring at a message, not a mistake. The source was even more impossible. It wasn't coming from another galaxy or a faraway star. It was coming from an asteroid already inside our solar system, one cataloged and tracked like any other harmless rock. Yet now it is spoken. And with that single pulse, the quiet heavens turned into a question humanity was never prepared to answer. Was it a warning or something far darker? High above the Pacific, perched on the volcanic peaks of Hawaii, sits one of humanity's most watchful guardians. It is called ATLAS, short for the Asteroid Terrestrial-impact Last Alert System, a network of observatories designed to keep Earth safe from space rocks that wander too close. With sister stations in South Africa and Chile, it was built to scan the skies every night, recording faint streaks of light that most people never notice. Its mission is not glamorous. Most of the time, ATLAS detects nothing more than dust, pebbles, or small asteroids that burn up harmlessly in our atmosphere. Each morning, scientists log their data, file their reports, and move on. It is the kind of routine that feels unshakable, the kind you can almost take for granted. But in late August, that routine shattered. ATLAS registered something it was never meant to hear: a signal. The system was built to see, not to listen, yet here it was, recording a pulse from the darkness. At first, many assumed it was a glitch, maybe interference bouncing off satellites, nothing worth losing sleep over. But the data kept coming back the same, precise and undeniable. Suddenly, what had always been just another tool for cataloging harmless objects became the center of the most disturbing discovery in modern astronomy. A telescope meant to watch for danger had instead uncovered a voice from the void. It began as nothing more than a ripple on a screen. Late one night, when most of the world was asleep, the observatories of ATLAS registered a spike that should not have been there. The system is programmed to flag moving dots of light, not sound, not rhythm. But on that night, instead of a streak across the stars, the monitors lit up with a pattern pulsing from deep space. At first glance, it looked like static, the kind of interference that has fooled scientists countless times before. After all, Earth is surrounded by satellites, radios, and signals bouncing in every direction. Noise is common, and so the first instinct was to dismiss it. Someone suggested it was crosstalk from a passing satellite. Another thought it was a local transmission bleeding into the feed. But as the hours passed, the pattern refused to fade. It repeated. Again and again, steady and deliberate, like a heartbeat echoing in the void. The team decided to isolate the source, tracing it against every possible Earth-based origin. They stripped away interference, checked against known satellites, even compared it with the chatter of deep space probes. One by one, every explanation collapsed. The noise was not coming from Earth. It was not drifting from Mars or Jupiter, nor was it the whisper of some distant star. The coordinates pointed to a very specific location, Asteroid 3I/Atlas. On paper, 3I/Atlas is nothing remarkable. It is one of thousands of minor bodies tracked in the solar system, a dark rock moving in a predictable orbit, catalogued, studied, and considered harmless. Yet here it was, broadcasting something organized, as if this dead object had suddenly come alive. The scientists stared in disbelief, rechecking their calculations, convinced they must have made an error. But the results kept returning the same. The pulse was real, the pulse was structured, and most importantly, the pulse was coming directly from 3I/Atlas. The rhythm was unlike anything natural. Cosmic radiation usually arrives in bursts, messy and uneven. Stars flare with random violence, comets scatter radio fuzz, and planets throw out chaotic magnetic storms. But this was different. The pulse had timing, spacing, and strength. It came in measured intervals, almost like sentences broken into words. The more the team studied it, the harder it was to believe this could happen by chance. It was not the sky hissing with static. It was the sky speaking. Inside the control rooms, the mood shifted from curiosity to fear. No one wanted to say it out loud, but everyone was thinking the same thing. This was not a natural signal. It was deliberate. Some leaned closer to the screens, trying to pick out meaning in the rise and fall of the waves. Others leaned back, shaken by the thought of what it could imply. Because if the data was correct, then humanity had just received a message, and not from another star system or galaxy far beyond reach, but from something already here, circling within our own cosmic neighborhood. For centuries, people have dreamed about making contact, but contact was supposed to come from far away, across impossible distances. No one expected it to come from an asteroid already under our watch. That realization left a cold silence hanging in the room. The pulse still played across the monitors, steady, relentless, waiting. The question grew heavier with every cycle. What was it trying to say? Once the shock of the signal wore off, the real work began. The scientists who first picked it up had a choice to dismiss it as a glitch and move on, or dig deeper into the pattern staring back at them. They chose to dig, and what they found was far more unsettling than anyone could have imagined. The pulse was not random at all. Hidden inside its rise and fall were sequences that felt familiar. The spacing of the beats, the way they repeated, almost like fingerprints pressed into static, hinted at intention. So the team began breaking it down piece by piece. They stretched the signal across time, cut it into slices, and measured the gaps between each burst. The numbers that emerged were impossible to ignore. Prime numbers appeared in sequence 2, 3, 5, 7, 11, stacked in perfect order. Then came ratios, patterns of repetition that mirrored mathematical constants used in everything from physics to music. It was as if the universe had taken out a pen and started writing with numbers. For centuries, thinkers have argued that if alien civilizations ever wanted to reach us, they would speak through math. Numbers are universal, the one language that does not need translation. No culture, no background, no planet can misinterpret the meaning of a prime number. And now, here it was, written into a pulse from an asteroid. But the message did not stop at simple mathematics. As the scientists dug deeper, they found more complexity hidden beneath. When they plotted the variations of the pulse against a star map, a picture began to form. Orbital arcs traced across the screen, connecting points like constellations. But these weren't random shapes. They were paths, trajectories moving through our solar system. One by one, they lined up with known asteroids and their future positions. And at the very center of the visualization was Earth. It looked like a warning map, showing impact points spread across the globe. Red markers blinked along coastlines, inland cities, oceans, deserts. It was as though the signal was telling us where the sky itself could one day fall. Still, there was more. When the team overlaid the timing of the pulses against the orbits, they uncovered something chilling. A timeline had been buried inside the noise. Not just locations, but dates, each one tied to a potential collision. The pulse was no longer just a riddle. It was a countdown. The discovery hit like a weight in the room. Silence filled the labs, broken only by the steady hum of the equipment. Nobody wanted to say the word message, but everyone felt it pressing against their chest. If this was real, then something out there had not only spoken to Earth, but had drawn a picture of its possible destruction. Some argued it had to be a hoax, maybe a trick of the data. Others swore it was too precise to be anything but real. And as they argued, the pulse continued, repeating its prime numbers, its ratios, its maps, and its dates like a teacher patiently explaining a lesson to students too afraid to understand. The universe had chosen its language, and it was a language humanity could not ignore. The question was no longer if the signal was deliberate. The question was why it was sent in the first place. And with every prime number, with every orbit traced on the screen, the suspicion grew that the warning was not about if an impact would happen, but about when. The numbers were frightening enough. Prime sequences, orbital arcs, and maps of Earth filled with red points already suggested danger. But when the timeline inside the signal was finally decoded, everything changed. There was no mistaking it. The pulse was pointing to a specific date. October 13th, 2036. At first, the team refused to believe it. Dates can be misread, sequences can be mistaken, and humans are quick to see patterns where none exist. But then someone cross-checked the number against the asteroid database, and that is when the pieces fell into place. The date lined up with the orbit of Apophis. The name alone carries weight in the world of astronomy. Apophis is a massive asteroid discovered in 2004, large enough to level entire cities if it ever struck Earth. When it was first detected, calculations suggested a small chance it might hit our planet in 2029. The news terrified the public. Headlines screamed about the asteroid that could end civilization, and governments scrambled to reassure people that the danger was being carefully studied. In time, NASA released new projections. The probability of a 2029 impact dropped close to zero, calming fears. But Apophis never disappeared from the spotlight. Its size, its orbit, and its history of close approaches kept it infamous. And now, this signal from 3i Atlas was pointing directly at it, not for 2029, but for 7 years later. October 13th, 2036. The weight of the discovery spread like a shadow. In meeting rooms, scientists whispered about the odds. In private emails, words like confirmation and warning appeared again and again. If this pulse was genuine, then it wasn't predicting just any random rock. It was pointing toward the very asteroid humanity had feared for decades. Apophis is more than 1,000 feet wide, a monster of stone and iron that would release energy equal to millions of nuclear bombs if it hit. The devastation would not be local, it would be global. Shockwaves would flatten entire regions. Dust clouds would block sunlight, crippling agriculture. The chain reaction could alter the climate and push humanity to the edge of survival. And here, written in numbers pulsing from an asteroid, was the suggestion that Apophis had not been cleared at all. Instead, the date of 2036 was stamped like a signature, a chilling reminder that our story with this object might not be over. The signal was not simply mathematics, it was a timeline, a countdown. When word of this leaked into wider circles, the reaction split sharply. Some dismissed it as paranoia, the desperate attempt to attach meaning to random noise. Others saw it as the final piece of a puzzle that had been haunting astronomers since 2004. After all, what were the odds that a random pulse would happen to align with the one asteroid already known worldwide for its potential to endanger Earth? Coincidence can explain a lot of things, but coincidence does not usually send messages in prime numbers and orbital maps. And so the fear deepened. For the first time, people began to whisper not about possibility, but about certainty. What if Apophis really is coming and 3I/Atlas is the messenger? If that is true, then humanity has less than 2 decades to prepare for the most devastating event in recorded history. The date hangs in the sky like a clock no one can stop, a reminder that the universe may already have written our ending. And every day that passes, the question grows louder. Was this just a chance, or was it confirmation of our worst fear? As the shock of the decoded message spread, a new debate began to burn inside the scientific community. If the signal truly came from 3I/Atlas, then the asteroid was no ordinary rock. But what exactly was it? The simplest explanation was unsettling enough. Maybe 3I/Atlas was not a natural asteroid at all. Its orbit and appearance might make it look like a chunk of frozen stone, but the pulse suggested something more. What if it was an ancient probe, left behind by a civilization that vanished long ago? The idea sounds like science fiction, yet probes are exactly what humans themselves have already launched into space. Voyager carries golden records meant to outlast us. Pioneer carries plaques showing Earth's place in the stars. If we can send such markers, then why not others before us? Perhaps 3I/Atlas is not just drifting through the void. Perhaps it was planted, waiting for the right time to wake and deliver its warning. Others pushed an even broader theory. What if the universe itself has a kind of alarm system? Mass extinctions on Earth have happened more than once, wiping out entire species. Some scientists have long wondered if those disasters followed hidden cycles. Now, with this pulse, the possibility grew darker. Maybe when the cycle nears its peak, signals are triggered to alert surviving civilizations. Not to save them, but to prepare them for what cannot be stopped. And if that is true, then 31/Atlas may not be alone. There could be other silent rocks hiding transmitters, scattered across space, programmed to speak only when danger draws near. Yet there was still another possibility, one that disturbed the room more than any other. What if the pulse was not a relic, not a cycle, but a test? Imagine something intelligent, watching us, waiting for the right moment to reveal itself. By sending a signal tied to Apophis, it forces us to react. Do we panic? Do we mobilize? Do we ignore it until it is too late? In this view, the asteroid is not the threat at all. The real question is who or what is behind the transmission and why they chose now to make themselves known. The speculation turned the discussion into a storm. Every theory was more terrifying than the last. A probe meant we are not the first. A cosmic alarm meant extinction might be woven into the fabric of existence. A test means we are being watched, judged by something far beyond our understanding. And still the signal pulsed, unbothered by the fear it left in its wake. Inside those simple beats was the possibility that humanity had stumbled onto a truth it was never meant to see. The numbers, the maps, the date, they all pointed to something waiting in the near future. And yet, the bigger mystery lingered. Was 3I/Atlas simply a drifting rock that had become the vessel of this message? Or was it never a rock at all? What if every orbit, every silent pass across the night sky has been part of a design we have only just begun to notice? That question weighed heavier than the prediction of impact itself. Because if the asteroid is more than what it seems, then the universe is not random. It is wired. It has rules, alarms, and signals, all waiting for us to uncover them. And perhaps 3I/Atlas is just the first voice in a choir we were never ready to hear. The signal from 3I/Atlas should have been the story of the century. It should have been front-page news across every country, a revelation too important to ignore. But almost as soon as whispers of the discovery spread, a wall of silence began to rise. Inside government buildings, closed-door meetings replaced open debate. Phone calls were made, documents were locked away, and scientists who had once spoken freely suddenly had nothing more to say. In Washington, in Brussels, in Beijing, the pattern repeated. Committees gathered late into the night, not to share the news but to contain it. The official line was simple. There was no unusual signal, nothing to discuss, nothing to fear. Yet behind those calm statements, something very different was unfolding. Reports surfaced of emergency simulations being quietly run by space agencies. Confidential memos described possible impact scenarios, evacuation zones, and even the financial shockwaves that would follow a global disaster. NASA and the European Space Agency both denied preparing for any specific asteroid threat, but insiders claimed entire teams were reassigned to contingency projects. The more the public was told not to worry, the more it began to suspect a cover-up. Whispers turned to questions. Why had Atlas, a system designed to spot asteroids, suddenly picked up something it was never built to hear? And if the pulse was just noise, why were intelligence agencies involved at all? Every denial only fueled the fire. In online forums, amateur astronomers insisted they too had seen anomalies in the data streams. Journalists who tried to dig deeper found doors shut in their faces. One researcher even admitted off the record that he had been strongly advised to stop asking questions. The effect was almost predictable. The silence did not calm fears, it made them grow. People began to wonder if the discovery of 3I/Atlas was being hidden, not because it was false, but because it was true. The thought of governments keeping such a secret lit a fuse of distrust. After all, if the signal really did warn of an impact date, then the clock was already ticking. And how could humanity prepare for something it was not even allowed to know about? Some argued that the secrecy was meant to protect people from panic, to prevent mass hysteria, but others saw it differently. They saw it as proof that the world's leaders were buying time, perhaps for themselves, perhaps for plans the rest of us would never be part of. In whispered conversations, new questions arose. Were bunkers already being built? Were evacuation lists already being drawn up, with only the powerful and wealthy guaranteed a place? And if the answer was yes, then what chance did ordinary people ever have? The irony was chilling. The louder the denials became, the more convinced people were that something extraordinary had been uncovered. For ordinary citizens, the story of 3I/Atlas transformed into more than just a scientific puzzle. It became the mystery of the century, a battle between what the stars were telling us and what officials refused to admit. The silence was deafening, but it carried a message all its own. Sometimes what is not said can reveal more than any official statement, and so the questions multiplied. If the warning is real, why are we being kept in the dark? If the countdown has already begun, what chance do we really have? And most of all, if silence is the only answer we are given, then perhaps the truth is far worse than anything we are being told. When the first pulse echoed from 3i Atlas, it seemed like a mistake. Just noise, a ripple lost in the static of space. But now, after months of decoding and denial, it feels more like a clock, one built not by human hands, but by something older, something that has been waiting for us to notice. The numbers spoke in prime sequences, the maps traced collisions, and the timeline pointed toward a date that humanity has feared for years. October 13th, 2036. We always imagined the threat would come from outside our reach, from galaxies so distant we could barely see them. Yet here it is, carried on the back of a rock already orbiting inside our own solar system. Some call it a warning, others call it a threat, but everyone who has studied it agrees on one thing: it was deliberate. And that is what makes it terrifying. For the first time, humanity may not just be looking at the possibility of impact, but at the possibility that someone, or something, wanted us to know it was coming. If that is true, then the countdown is already ticking, hidden above us in the night sky. So we are left with a question that no one can answer. Was 3i/Atlas a cosmic guardian shouting across the void to give us a chance? Or was it the messenger of doom, delivering news we were never meant to survive? What do you believe the signal really was: a warning, a threat, or something we cannot yet understand? Share your thoughts below and subscribe to mindgap for more secrets the world tries to keep hidden.